Welcome to the Responsible Marketing Podcast, conversations about marketing, sustainability, and how we can all help in becoming more responsible organisations. I'm Jo, a marketing strategist and consultant with a career spanning corporate, small medium business and self-employment, incorporating marketing and commercial skills in various guises. And now flying the flag for a more sustainable and kind future for all. Today's guest is Sarah Thackray from Beacon House Events, based in the north of England. Beacon House Events is causing a real stir in the events industry, as well as the SME sector, leading the way in event sustainability and responsibility. Sarah and I talk about the forward-thinking ways Beacon House Events measures the impacts of the events they organise and host, as well as the revelations to what the biggest contributor is, the psychology of humans not wanting to stand out from the crowd, how they've turned offsetting on its head, and how sharing business practices and experiences is vital in creating real change. Let's dive straight in. Hi everyone and welcome to the podcast. I'm delighted to have Sarah Thackray from Beacon House Events with me today.
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
All right, nice to see you.
Yes, nice to see you too, finally.
I know.
I get to speak to you, which is great. I've been very excited about talking to you. I've done lots of stalking on the internet, so I know lots about you, but I'm just really excited about what we've got to talk about today. So, Before I start babbling on, why don't you introduce yourself and Beacon House Events, how you started, what you do, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. We are Beacon House Events. We've been going 11 years now. We're based in Newcastle. We work nationally across the UK, delivering all sorts of events, so conferences, workshops, outdoor events, festivals, roundtables. So it's kind of evolved over the years.
Yeah.
I started that with my business partner in 2014, and now we're a team of 8, and we work across the UK, but a lot of stuff still in the northeast region.
Excellent. And so what kind of got you into eventing for a start, but also about sustainability, because you're very much about sustainable eventing and the impact that events will have or could have, and the service industry. We've just talked about that a little bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I got into events because I loved events, but that was many years ago, 20 years ago. I started in a different agency, got a lot of exposure to different types of events. We do things with academic conferences and associations, so I've done that for many years as well. And I love bringing people together for a reason and to create some impact or purpose or conversation. And so I guess it kind of naturally evolved into what should we be looking at here now that the world's changing and people are becoming more aware of the damage to the environment, the impact we can have, the positive impact we can have on our communities. Yeah. So over the last, I'd say 3 or 4 years, probably coming out of COVID, where of course the events industry was decimated, no one could go anywhere, everything went online. I think people started really reflecting and realising that actually the events industry is quite a damaging industry environmentally, potentially. So what can we do to make a change coming out of COVID to not go back to such impactful ways? So I've seen that there's a lot of movement in that space since probably 2021, 22. And that's when we first started thinking really heavily, what can we do to be more responsible as a business? But we wanted to look at ourselves first rather than just the offer to the client and what the event does, because in fact, to be genuine and to really be passionate and drive change, you've got to believe in it internally yourself.
Walk the walk, right?
That's what I love about what we're doing here, is that it's all about where we're at and what we want to do and our passion towards it, and that then hopefully shows in what we then suggest to clients and how we deliver. So it's a big journey, basically. We're still definitely learning loads all the time. Yeah. And I love talking to people and collaborating and finding out what others are doing to try and tweak and create new ideas. Some things work, some things don't. So it's been an interesting journey. I would say we're in about year 3 or 4 of properly focusing on responsible events we're now talking about. Yes. Because sustainable has a lot of connotations. Some people think it's just environmental. Yep. Others then think about the societal impact. So for us, it's being responsible, doing the right thing, essentially. Yeah, being a good business, but also sharing that as well. And interesting that you said that obviously you realised that people were becoming more aware of events maybe not being so positive on their impact on the environment. Was that an industry thing, or was that just you talking to other services within the eventing, or was it just you as an individual, your business partner? So our journey actually started because one of our clients is the Planet Mark. Okay. They're an accreditation for sustainability, so a bit like an ISO type thing. So we were introduced to them through a different client, started delivering their awards event, and I guess it just made me think, what's this stuff? And that was actually back in 2019, so before COVID we started working with them, probably 2018, 2019. And I guess then coming out of COVID, when our minds were thinking more about how to do more, better, it made me think, because we were accrediting with Planet Mark from the beginning of working with them, because we thought this is a good thing to do, we should look at doing it. But we didn't really have many measures in place as an organisation, or we didn't have any strategy really. Yeah. So I guess that influence kind of took a while. It was like a slow burner. And then coming out of COVID, I was thinking, oh yeah, okay, so we could actually do more of this good stuff. Let's just not just record what we're doing. Let's try and do it better and change it and be a better organisation. So that's probably where the seed of the idea around being responsible, sustainable, they were very much carbon focused at the beginning. Yeah. So that's where we started, I suppose. But then coming out of that, now we created 2 or 3 years ago our own ESG strategy as a business. So we now look at ourselves as an organisation and our external services and what we offer to our clients as 2 separate parts of the wheel. Yeah. Because they're so interlinked, I think they should be part of the same strategy. So it kind of the seed came from working with them, I would say. And then since about 22, I think Isla have appeared, who are the event management membership. So they're the event industry membership body for sustainable events. Okay. We were early adopters of their Trace platform, which is the carbon measurement tool for events specifically. So we took our license in 2022 when that came out. Can't remember when Isla started, perhaps a couple of years before that. And they're driven by a really purpose-driven, amazing, great leader. So that kind of inspires me as well. You know, when you come across people that are really trying to do some good stuff and are inspiring, it kind of makes you want to do more. Yeah,
it rubs off, doesn't it?
Yeah, and be a leader yourself.
Absolutely.
Because I think even though we're a small agency, we can all be leaders in our own space. And the influence we can have is enormous in events, because we touch so many people, clients, suppliers, and all the delegates and visitors. Exactly, So I do think, even though we're small, our impact can be great. Which is why I'm pretty motivated by
I can see
doing
it.
it.
Very animated. It makes me excited as well. I love stuff like this. Well, clearly, otherwise I wouldn't be doing the podcast. But and you touched there on measurements. So how do you actually measure impact of an event, whether you're presenting the event or one of your clients' events, whatever that is?
It's tough. You need to get stakeholders on board with you, because you rely on data coming from the venue. So it might be the energy usage at venues. So we tell our venues in advance what data we'll need from them. Some venues still can't give you exact data of the energy that was used in that room for that event for that day. But there's ways using the Trace system I mentioned, where you can basically get sort of average data from that venue or a monthly bill, and then break it down to how many days you used it. I mean, I think that needs to get better, in fact, and I'm working with the venues in our region to try and make that easier for us, but also can they change their systems to make it easier for them, because they're getting asked all this information they never used to have to supply. So there's that. Then there's the catering element, of course. You can put in the Trace system again, you can put all your dishes in. So what it was, you tend to focus on what the main part of the dish. So was it what kind of meat, or was it fish, or was it vegetarian, or was it plant-based? Naturally, the plant-based ones are the lowest carbon. So as an event organisation, we push vegetarian and vegan menus at all our events, but sometimes we have a bit of meat in there, but we try and go heavy on the percentages if we can. And if it's a meal that is chosen by someone, so a dinner or whatever, we ask people to opt in for the meat option. So we, not always, but most of our clients are happy to follow our lead about the vegetarian by default, so that basically everyone just gets given the vegetarian dish unless they tick the box. And interestingly,
it's another step for them to do, isn't it?
And
so
human
behaviour,
lazy,
they get the vegetarian whether they like it or not.
Or even it's not really even to do with not noticing, it's more that people don't want to actually stand out, and so people tend to choose the default because they sort of think that that's the expectation. So when you look at behaviour change and human behaviour, I was quite interested in doing a short course at Northumbria Uni about 2 years ago, and mostly I was with a group of people who worked in healthcare, or they were working on, say, smoking cessation programs. So mine was a completely different sort of approach. But interesting that most people will follow the norm. So if you give them no reason to pick the other option, then they should hopefully go with the carbon-friendly option. But we're moving now towards kind of trying to educate people about the choice they're making, and not just force them to do these things. Because actually what you want is that people consider it and think about it for their next event they go to or the next choice they make.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the measurement piece, so a lot of event carbon is from travel.
Yeah.
The majority really, often for us 80% of our event carbon is from the audience travel. So, and that's because we don't do huge impactful exhibitions. So big exhibitions or big infrastructure events will have a lot more carbon in the setup, whereas for a conference where you're in a venue, you don't print loads of single-use stuff, which we don't do. Most of the carbon tends to be in the travel. So you need your delegates to provide you with information. Yeah. So we ask on the booking form how they've travelled to the event, and so which mode of transport was their primary mode and the postcode they've travelled from. Okay. So then in this system you can input all that data and it fires out the amount of carbon that was for that travel. Yeah. So it's a great system, and it allows you to see where you could have saved more carbon. It gives you kind of tips
for next time. Maybe if you're working with a client this following year or whatever that is, then maybe you can discuss with the client what changes you can make.
Yes,
to do the event to maybe improve on that or whatever else.
Yeah, and it's just nice to be able to see, because if you ask someone who's never measured an event before, how would they know how much carbon to expect?
Exactly.
And even what does that carbon even mean? How much is that? So I think we need to just be more open about sharing that. So we've got a document on our website which basically, from our own data from this trace platform, we can tell people if it's a one-day conference for 300 people, you're likely looking at 1.5 to 4 tons of carbon, say, if it's regional attendance. If it's national, if it's international, it's going to go up from there, especially if there's flights involved, because flights obviously massively increase your carbon. So but it's all about kind of just being open and educating and sharing, I think. But the measurement piece is interesting, but it's only really one small part of it, I guess. But it allows people to see and then to benchmark.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, just like you said before, just understanding where you are now.
Yeah, because otherwise no one knows what that means. Yeah.
Versus, the rest of the industry or another event that's going on or whatever. Yeah, it's really difficult. So do you find then now you're a bit of a go-to for clients or for venues even? Because I'm guessing some clients might go straight to a venue and say, look, can you do this event for me? Mm-hmm. And therefore the venue might say, well, this is our preferred partner because of blah, blah, blah. Does that happen?
Yeah,
or not yet, maybe.
I think it's still us driving the change.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think we're being asked from our clients for it as much as we're wanting them to do it. So it's still a bit of a push kind of situation. A little bit of the carrot though, because we're trying to show them what benefit it will be to them, but still a bit of kind of nudging along. And so what we do now with our clients is we survey them at the beginning of their contract about sustainability. Okay. So we ask them about their own objectives in sustainability as an organisation, and we force rank certain areas. So that could be community engagement, social impact, could be carbon offsetting, could be using environmentally accredited suppliers, all sorts of things. There's 10 things, I think. And the force ranking is quite interesting because it makes people obviously think about which things are most important to their organisation. And it really allows us a way in, because if the best way to engage people is to meet their objectives, help them meet their objectives, rather than just coming with a whole new set of things that they've never thought of and they're not that interested in, and it's not under their remit, so actually I'm not too bothered. If we can find a way to align with what their objectives are, and even if they do rate it low, we can just try and move them from, the second bottom item to the third bottom item next year, because we're showing them the ways that. So I'm intrigued in that engagement side, and I think I'm definitely not someone who would ever judge about the situation you come in at, and whether you don't do anything, that's also fine. Yeah. But if you're open, have an open mindset to just at least finding out about it and what the options are, that's the kind of people I love working with. Because if we can shift someone from a 1 to a 2 on a scale of 10, that's still a massive achievement compared to 9 to 10. We'd love to work with everyone who wants to do everything perfectly in sustainability, but that's just not realistic probably in real life. So just the influencing thing helps. And venues, similarly, we've got a supply chain group up in the Northeast where we meet regularly and we talk about challenges and things that they've experienced as suppliers and venues and the things we've learned, and we just try and feed into each other to all get better. So we are definitely known in the Northeast for that now. But it's not to say everyone is asking for it yet, but hopefully over time they will do more and more.
And do you find then, once you started maybe a client thinking about it, even if they're, like you say, they're rung 2 or 3 perhaps rather than 9 or 10. So let's talk about the 2 or 3s, because again, that's probably where the biggest impact can happen as well. Once they've opened their mind to sustainability or responsibility in a much greater way, do you find then they are actually hooked on that a little bit and think, actually next year maybe this is, you know, if you've come at it, and I agree with you, it has to be aligned to the business objectives, full stop, whatever, rather than being an extra arm to have to worry about. Do you find then that they're kind of engaged in that and therefore quite positive about it, and it tends to influence or filter through to the rest of the business then as well?
Yeah, I think more and more, but I do think there's still quite often a misalignment slightly with the people running the events and the organisational sustainability people or body or directors sometimes. I think they don't always embed their external events with their corporate objectives, which is interesting. So even though they want to and they say what their objectives are, I think sometimes it's seen as a bit of a side thing, side hustle or a fringe thing or something that doesn't quite come under the core. But actually, over time, with your Scope 3 reporting, everyone is going to have to take that into account. But I am interested that I'm not yet being asked by many of our clients for our own footprints. Like, we give it to them,
really?
But they're not saying, I need this, by the way. You know, I think larger corporates probably are asking, but some of the businesses we work with or the associations or whatever, even when they're linked to big university institutions who do have objectives and targets, they still see, I think, these things as slightly separate. So it's interesting that it's not fully integrated yet with a business always, but I think we're getting there.
I wonder if they don't realise that actually can contribute to that data as well. Maybe it's just you know, like you say, they haven't quite put the pieces all together where actually this, because we're doing a really amazing, responsible, sustainable event, this can contribute to our overall data that we're collating and reporting on.
I think you're right,
so more education maybe as well, which is what we're here for, isn't it? So have you been doing, so you mentioned obviously about you collaborating with your industry as well. Do you work quite intensely with your supply chain, I guess, and pick your partners, your supply chain partners quite carefully so that they're underpinning what you're trying to do? With that?
We only launched our supply chain roundtables at the start of 24. So we first went out to our regional suppliers at the end of 2023, set our stall out really and shared what our vision and purpose is about wanting to deliver sustainable, responsible events and drive that change in the industry. Got them on board with it. Asked them to do a survey as a supplier about where they were on their journey. No judgment, it was just more like, tell us what you're up to, what your challenges are. Then we got them all together for the first roundtable meeting in January 24, and we've done 6 or 7 since then. And so in that group, we managed to present to them the idea of creating a supplier code of conduct for us as a business, because that seemed important. We wanted to work with suppliers who aligned with our values, understood that they should act responsibly as well. We want to do things with the best intention. So it's not a contractual arrangement. We're not a robust accreditation system, so we're not checking that they're doing all these things. It's more about buying into the values, like a value match. So that has been in place since the start of 25. We actually launched it at the end of last year, and now we're rolling it out. So initially we rolled it out just to our Northeast suppliers in that group, got them to get on board and sign it. And now in the last couple of months, we're going out to all the suppliers we work with who we spend £5,000 or more with a year, or on behalf of our clients. So we might not be spending the money, but we're getting the quote and getting them the work. So we're getting there now. So we've got 30 odd suppliers signed up to that. Amazing. And that includes like the Planet Mark, for example, because obviously we pay them to do our carbon reporting as a business. So we've tried to get kind of everyone across the spectrum. So just business suppliers and event industry suppliers, not just venues and whatever. So it's interesting, and it's I haven't had much pushback or feedback that they wouldn't want to. And in fact, some of our suppliers have come back. I've got quotes from them saying, this is why I love working with you guys, because you're just leading the charge and showing us what we can be doing better as an industry. And actually, he was like, it makes me think I need to get on top of my carbon account. You know, need to start just thinking about it. Even if it's just puts a seed in their brain. They don't, I'm not expecting. It's very difficult for small businesses to have the resource, the people, the time and the passion. Sometimes they just might not have that passion for it. And that is also fine, because some people have a passion for other things I wouldn't have a passion for. But I think it's just trying to explain where it, just operate in an ethical way, in the right kind of responsible way is enough, really. You don't have to do mammoth things to make a change, but get on board with it really and be open to the conversation. And
I think there's also a case where they're probably doing loads of stuff already. You know, so that's one of my things is that, I want businesses or organisations to understand that they're probably actually doing loads of really great stuff already. They're just not telling people, they don't even realise it, you know, and again, going back to that kind of contribution, with the responsible events actually contribute to that? Well, it would do. So it's like kind of, again, opening their eyes to, and I think that's where they get the cogs turning, especially if they're like entrepreneurial. Yeah. You know, they suddenly start thinking, actually, this could be really good. And there's also a perception that it has to be expensive, and it doesn't. Yeah. You know,
there's also a cost. I mean, you know, there's cost savings sometimes. You know, so people think, oh, it's going to cost. I did a talk last week at an industry event actually, and one of the questions was from the audience, you know, this all sounds amazing. It must have cost a lot. How much did it cost? And so I openly shared the budget was 150,000 for this 5-day festival thing. And I think £1,200 we spent on sustainable measures, which was literally just the offsetting of, so we called it the ethical offsetting of the carbon. So not buying the credits necessarily, but creating the value pot and then donating it. That was about £500, and then the rest of the spend was on measures like food surplus collections with a community food sharing app. Yeah. So they came and collected the surplus food and distributed it. So I mean, it's not a mass. And actually, we did so many other things that didn't cost any money. Yeah. So I genuinely think you could create that for an event without spending any of the money. And if you don't want to offset because you don't have that spare money in that budget that year, you're still being responsible by operating efficiently and ethically in all the other ways, and creating community impact by collecting food bank donations from your guests or attendees. You know, there's little things you can do, going vegetarian by default or reducing the carbon intensiveness of your menu. So there's loads of things you can do which might save money and might not cost anything. So I do think just being open to what that could be without shutting down and saying it's going to be too expensive. Yeah, you know? Exactly. Yeah, again, back to education, aren't we, really? So you've mentioned offsetting a couple of times. So offsetting, and I'm not being critical on this, but offsetting for me is a bit of a swear word in this, because I think a lot of businesses fall into offsetting as in buying credits, which you just said, not about buying credits. But automatically people think, oh yeah, I'll just give some money or buy some trees or buy some credits. And then that'll do. Done. Yeah. So I know clearly you don't actually have that opinion. So talk to me about that. So how do you prescribe offsetting, I suppose? How do you consider that in the business? Because I know you talk about it on your website as well. So I'm intrigued to have that definition kind of split apart, because it's very different to how I think most people look at offsetting. I think it's changing now. So I'm with you in that buying the credits to plant the trees in South America seems like a get out a little bit, depending what your project is and where your impact is. For me, you should be doing something in the place that you've delivered. For events, you should be doing something in the place that you exist in or that your event is in, because that's the place. And I know environmental impacts are global, but actually you're creating that impact in that part of the region or in that part of the country or in that part of the world. So for us, we never wanted to just buy sort of faceless credits and just let someone else do it. I did speak to a few of those tree planting, and actually there's some great work going on. There are some amazing, and there's more and more forests and things being created in the UK, nearby. I think there's some at the borders here, maybe up in Scotland. So there are more options if you do need to do that. But what we decided from the beginning, and because again we're a small company, we're agile and can do whatever we want, we were like, this doesn't feel right. So what we're going to do is create a carbon credit equivalent donation pot. So I would work on £25 a tonne, which may be a bit low. You can go anywhere from up to £150 a tonne when you're buying credits, from £10, depending what it is you're investing in. So we use the £25, which may be a bit low. Maybe we need to increase it. And then we times that by the number of tonnes of carbon that is in our footprint. And of course, because we know that now through our trace reporting, and as a business, we now report scopes 1 to 3, all of the scopes. So it went from, our business carbon went from 4.5 tonnes as a small service sector industry business to 143 tonnes. Because of course the scope 3 takes into account all of our service purchasing. So all of our venues, all of our speakers, all of our any printing we do, entertainment we buy. So went up hugely. And so we donate that to Groundwork. We have done until now for the last 3 years, donated that pot to Groundwork North Eastern Cumbria, who are an environmental and community charity. Actually, they're national, but this is the North East branch. And they have a nature-based solutions program. So when you give them that money, they'll invest it into some of those projects that they're doing to regenerate nature in whichever area. And they have loads of projects. But interestingly, in the Northeast, just recently, I think it's a world first, the Nature and Carbon Marketplace has just launched. That's a mayoral thing. It's come out of Northeast Combined Authority. And that exists to showcase and signpost to lots of projects regionally that you can buy kind of credits for or donate into.
Yeah.
And it allows organisations in this region or people wanting to donate into this region to actually make a real impact in our region. That's here, amazing. Which is brilliant.
Yeah.
So we've just said to Groundwork, should we do our donation through this platform now so that we can show the support for it? So we might do that this year rather than the direct donation. So yeah, so that's how we calculate ours. I don't know what others do, but it's interesting that this Carbon and Nature Marketplace has sort of followed suit to be like, actually, we should be investing regionally.
Yeah, that's really
so it feels like, you know, we've done something that other people also want to do.
Yeah.
So that's how we do it. I think for some larger organisations, it's tricky because they maybe have lots of carbon, like loads, and they don't know which area to put it in, or they need the data back to say that they've actually offset the carbon.
That's the thing, and that was going to be my next question to you actually, because do you get feedback from Groundworks, for example, to say where that money's gone and what impact it's had? So do you get maybe a social value impact report or anything like that back from them to say this is actually, you know, what Beacon House events actually contributed to, and this is the value of it?
We have, and that's funny you ask that, because I was never too bothered about it. I just said, just put it into that project and do some good, and we go and volunteer every year as well with them, so we then go and see with the projects and help and do, so we get exposure to it. But this year they actually said to me, do you want the impact report back afterwards so you can actually see what it is that you've invested in? And I was like, well, if you can do that now, brilliant. Yes, why wouldn't we? But it's not the driver for me, because if you trust an organisation, a charity in their local, regional, and you know they do great projects, you know they're going to be delivering that impact. But sure, if you're a larger organisation, you probably maybe do need that reporting level. Yeah. So it's good that they can offer that now.
Yeah, and I think also to bring it back to marketing, if you know exactly where it's going, what projects are being used for, and the positive impact you've had, then you can use that in your comms, can't you, afterwards? So again, it builds your credibility and your reputation, and so it goes on, doesn't it? So. You offer a sustainable, I'm just checking my notes, sustainable events toolkit to your customers. Tell me about that. So I guess then that means that you're extending to both sides of your, what I would call your value chain. So you're doing supply chain, so your suppliers, but also then your customers. Is it for all your customers, that toolkit?
So I can't take complete credit for this toolkit because we were involved in creating it, but it was a Newcastle Gateshead Initiative Convention Bureau project that was funded through Destination North East England, which was a pilot project from central government funding to basically enhance tourism and responsible business event tourism in the North East region. We got the money, I believe, because the North East is the lowest visited region of the UK.
Is it?
Yeah, in terms of incoming
visitors. You wouldn't think that when everyone's up here in the summer.
I know.
It's crazy,
but
isn't it?
Apparently so. I mean, I'm not the statistician.
We'll go with that.
Yeah. Look it up if you want to know. But
that's what the data says.
Yeah. So we then got this funding as a region, and through that I was part of the Regenerative Tourism and Events Framework Group, which involved local councils, it involved the wildlife trusts, Northumberland Parks, a lot of organisations, including visitor attractions. Yeah. And I was kind of there representing really the events organisers of the region, because there aren't a huge number. And then what came out of that is I kept saying, this is all great having this framework. I do like the fact we're putting a lot of effort into how that could look, but how are we actually going to deliver action? Because that's, I think, where the sweet spot is for us as a small business. We can actually affect the change and do create the action. I know maybe on a small scale, but it's just, otherwise I fear that we're just all sat in glass houses and strategizing, and who's actually doing anything. And people are, but let's get those case studies out there. Absolutely. So from that came the discussion with the Convention Bureau about, we actually need to help people know what to do now with this strategy. How do you deliver a sustainable event? It's no good just saying, you need to do that now, and giving a 300-page document to a small agency like us, because no one has time to do it. Because there are a lot of things out there already, but again, they're quite long, they're lengthy, they're brilliant, but only if you've got time to digest them. So this toolkit is available on the Convention Bureau, Newcastle Gateshead website, and that allows you to see, so we had various sections on there, so it might be like liaising with local colleges and universities to get access to opportunities for the local students, for example. It could be the Carbon and Nature Marketplace, it could be sustainably accredited suppliers in this region, it could be talking about food waste, food surplus, suppliers that exist to help advise people how they can do that better. So it's quite an interesting bit of work. I think it's going to evolve and keep changing and
Yeah,
growing,
definitely.
because obviously there's more and more suppliers, there's more and more interest and more going on. So it's not a static thing, which I also like, because a lot of documents you see are a PDF that's been designed really well and great, but that's it. And what do you do in a year or two when it's slightly outdated or there's new information to add? So this should be digestible and easy to just look at. And we've rolled it out with NGI. We've done a few workshops with other event organisers in the region, also with venues and suppliers. It's been really interesting conversation. And I try and feed back as well I'm a member of ILA, the Event Management Sustainability Network, so that's great because a lot of their stuff is down south, like everything seems to be. So I go to a lot of those events and then I'll bring content back up. They've done recently a temperature check report talking about across Europe, this is the stats in events in terms of sustainability, which is a great way to also benchmark and learn from each other. So I try and distill those reports with their permission. I've spoken to them about it and deliver that to our local ecosystem, which people are quite often grateful for. So I've got a few easy slide decks to just go through and say, this is what the impact of catering is. And a good example of that data shows that people obsess often in events about serveware, so like single-use cups.
Plastic and
we need
stuff,
crockery.
Yeah.
Well, certainly we don't want single-use plastic, but like a paper mug versus a crockery mug.
Yeah.
And a paper fork, a wooden fork versus a metal fork. And actually, funnily enough, that in the data it showed that the impact of the serveware in the catering carbon is tiny compared to the food.
Okay.
So that's where you need to drive I'm not saying we should all now have disposable stuff
but
the bigger change you can make is the actual menu choice. And I'm not a vegetarian, plant-based sort of eco-warrior. I'm more just like, if you're going to an event for 2 days and there's 1,000 people there, what an amazing thing to be able to do to deliver such a sustainable, responsible menu that your carbon is 1/10 of what it would have been as a group. And then you can go and eat whatever you want in your own life. It's not trying to change everyday habits. It's just saying we can have a big impact as a group. Yeah. And why wouldn't we, sort of thing. So it starts just getting people thinking. Yeah. So the sustainability toolkit's quite good for that because it just seeds a few ideas. Yeah. And there's certainly always open, like there's a section on there saying, let us know if you want to get involved, if you're doing some other things, like we've got case studies in there, examples of what people are up to. So yeah, definitely something worth checking out if you're delivering in the Northeast. But I think also I've shared it with some organisations through, as I'm a member of ABCO, which is a British conference organisers membership nationally, and I've shared about what we've done with our supply chain with them, and so some of them are even international, so that's cool. So we're getting exposure for the Northeast and what we're up to more broadly, and hopefully others will follow, because it's hard, isn't it? There's a lot of noise, there's a lot of stuff out there, but you don't quite know where to turn. No, and yeah, like you say, there's so much. Well, it's a bit like, so I always compare sustainability to marketing, because marketing is such a massive word. Yeah. And it covers so many aspects. Exactly. Sustainability is a word. Well, events is in marketing. Yeah, exactly. You know, and sustainability covers so much. Yeah. But I think you're right, you know, it's got to evolve. It's got to continuously evolve, because I mean, I said to someone the other day, or a couple of weeks back actually, saying, you know, by the time we all get to 2035 or whatever, or 2050 or whatever the date is, it won't look like this, what we're looking at now anyway. It'll all have changed anyway. So as long as we're working our way towards something, improving ourselves, and that's going to be better than nothing, right? Yeah. But I love the fact what you just said about the menu again, just going back to the food, because that's also human psychology, isn't it, I guess? Because you're making people feel good for that choice. Yeah. So you're almost sharing, they're almost part of that amazing positive impact the event's having, and they can go home feeling a bit. And that's actually a really interesting communication point in the marketing sense, is that we shouldn't forget that piece, which is sharing the good news. Yes, and totally. Because I think sometimes as event people, we can just beaver along getting the event done and all the planning and everything perfect. And then maybe we forget to tell our delegates a week later, actually, do you know that thing that you did? That you kindly stuck with the veggie by default menu? Guess what? You know, that did this. Or the Olio partnership we have now, which is the moving of the surplus food from events into the community. That, you know, we've got stats from them about the number of family meals that were provided from the surplus that otherwise, and by the way, if other people can eat it, fine, great. I mean, if the venue staff need to eat it, as long as it's eaten, as long as it's used, it doesn't matter. It doesn't go to waste. And in fact, you know, if we can then give it to a charity, obviously a homeless group or anyone, as long as we can pass it on. But there is quite a lot of red tape around people accepting food items and not accepting them, and the Olio platform is brilliant, because as long as the venue has kept it at the right temperature and packaged it in the right way, as soon as that food goes to the Olio volunteer in the community, they are now not liable anymore for that food. because that's quite a big fear for venues and caterers, because beforehand, or before Olio existed or others, they were still liable for that food. So if someone then got ill because they hadn't read something on an allergen label or something, then they would be potentially sort of liable. So it's a great shift that we've got that change, and hopefully it'll make a big, because the Olio community sharing app is really popular. So this is just the event extension. But yeah, so I love the fact that we're joining with that as an early. I quite like being an early adopter with things, just trying it. You know?
It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, and just, and some things don't work, and that's fine,
Yeah.
Like last year, we tried, from one of our events, we tried to do food waste recycling. So, funny enough, because in the Northeast, we don't have food waste recycling yet, although it has now come in from April this year, the legislation, but it's still not really there yet.
It's got to be adopted yet, hasn't it? Yeah.
But in the South, for example, they've been recycling food waste for many years. And some of the private, obviously, hotels and things are doing it because they want to. But not all our venues had food waste recycling. So last year, we worked with Gap Global, who are an anaerobic digestion waste plant in Gateshead. And we asked them to deliver some bins to our venues we were using for the food waste, and then the venues used them. That was great. Everyone was willing to take the bin. But then we had some trouble with getting the bins collected, and then they were there too long, and then the general public were just chucking random bits of, if it was in a back lane of a city type thing. So that wasn't brilliant. The first time we worked with them, it worked well, and they gave us the stats of like the energy that had been created, like the bio gas that had been created from the food waste. So like that's a quite cool stat as well. It's been saved from landfill or whatever. So, but hopefully we won't need to do that too much longer, because the legislation is coming in where everyone should be doing this anyway, as standard as a venue or a building or a caterer. But there's things like that you try and then it doesn't quite work. Like the supplier found it tricky because it was such a small contract for them, because they're obviously a big contractor. They go put bins out every week for the same hotels. So one bin on one day doesn't really fit in with what the remit is.
It's not cost effective for them, is it?
But they were willing to try it for us,
It's good.
So
it's good.
I quite like being that kind of, innovator and trying to pioneer some solutions. And if you then see someone else doing something better and that seems to work, let's just try and adopt that.
Yeah, and see what happens outside of your industry as well, I guess.
Exactly.
So you clearly are very forward thinking, and you've got your various awards and everything, which is amazing. You've also been named a Power 50 Green Champion.
Yes.
What is that?
So that
I didn't know about this.
So that was a partnership with Isla, who I mentioned, and the event industry sustainability body, and MySbook, who are an industry publisher. They came together, I think that was 2 years ago now, and decided to basically find the event sustainability sort of pioneers in the country. So you applied and then you got put on a list. So it's a list of 50 individual people at different agencies, maybe some venue people, just basically champions, sustainability champions. And that's quite nice, because then you get a case study of what everyone does, and what they're up to.
So again, you can see what other people are doing, and maybe, again, steal with pride or whatever.
Yeah, and it's just about basically creating role models so that others are inspired to do things as well. Because I think if we all keep secrets, if we all keep everything we're doing secret, no one's going to learn from it. And actually, this is bigger than competition for me, because it's a global crisis. We need to actually just share as much as we can in this instance. So creating the role models by putting people into, these sort of lists of 50 sustainability champions in the event sector is a great way of inspiring others, hopefully, to follow suit. And for me, you can't compete on event sustainability. We should all just be sharing and learning. Some people, I think, still see it as like a USP. I'm not that comfortable with that, because I don't agree that it should be a USP. I'm not saying it shouldn't be a USP if you are doing it really well, shout about it. But we don't want to be the only people doing it. We want everyone to be doing this.
Yeah, you don't want to ring fence what you're doing just for you, but equally it is a USP, because again, it contributes to your marketing and your brand reputation and everything else. But it just also means you're a champion of the industry, aren't you? So,
and hopefully in 5 years it won't be USP.
Exactly.
And we'll have to look at what else we can do.
You'll be doing something else probably anyway.
So I am very open, and I always am willing to talk and share with anyone who's interested. I mean, as you can tell, I like talking.
That's all right. You're very welcome. So we work in similar industries, obviously, eventing, marketing, very much a crossover. How do we, marketing as a whole is probably one of the worst industries to be considered sustainable or should have more responsibility, because obviously we're driving consumerism and all that kind of stuff. So what can we do in the industry, and what can we champion to actually change that movement, to really make people want to either consume less or be more responsible as an organisation?
I guess we need to make it the thing to do, you know, like with everything. I mean, I'm not really, despite being an event management person and business leader, I'm not really a brilliant marketeer. I wouldn't describe myself as. So, but I guess what you want to do is create this sort of thing that everyone wants, you know, so everyone wants to be part of this because this is the right thing to do.
Movement.
Yeah, so it is by, I guess, showing those who are involved and creating inspirational stories and making people want to be part of that. So in terms of the wasteful marketing industry, I do see that suppliers we use are getting more and more influenced by clients requesting things, so better materials, not wanting to get new virgin materials each time. How can we reuse? That's actually something came out of the ILA temperature check report. We still use too many virgin materials for our events as an industry. So we need to look at how we repurpose stuff. Obviously, you can reuse banners and things, but how do you store things? Because it's no good getting things and going, we'll use it again, and then it just gets left in a corner and it's foisty and ruined.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it's got water damage and you can't use it. So you need to think about the whole, so people talk about designing sustainability into the product from the very beginning, not just thinking about it afterwards and going, what should we do with it now? So from the very outset, should we source that material from something that's recycled? Should we find an item that we can use, like would it be a wood thing or something that we can use for staging? So I think rather than always just defaulting to what looks best, it can still look brilliant, but it can have a bigger purpose and bigger impact societally as well. Because actually I'm still interested in how we can do more with our local community around making product for an event and use it at the event, and then it goes back to that society or community. So like, could it be an artwork or a piece that's put on the stage? Like if you want a big logo or a big something, could it be commissioned with a community art group? They make it, you pay them to do that instead of paying to get it made by a manufacturer. Then it gets put in the place, lovely centerpiece, and then can be used somewhere. So I'm still kind of exploring how we do that well. Because it's not easy, you know, and you often need things at very tight time scales on events.
We talked about that before.
You know, and it's difficult. It all sounds wonderful, but actually, how easy is it, and how practical? Sometimes it's hard. But I think the marketing thing is, I think people are becoming more aware and more responsible, and the big brands are now. Well, they hopefully are.
Certainly talking about it anyway.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess it's telling the stories.
I agree.
And trying to get people on board.
And I like the fact you said about maybe creating some, whether it's stage pieces or whatever it is, because you can then go back into the community and ask for woodworkers or I don't know, people who are furniture makers, for example, or whatever, to actually create those things. And like you say, then it goes back into the community. It's like another really nice story, isn't it? You know,
I was looking recently at someone recommending on a membership I'm part of, recommending a supplier who will repurpose like PVC banners. So if anyone's, not that we really should be creating things with plastic anymore, but if we have big banners and big signage, you can send them to them and they'll make items like little bags or gifts. So then you could give that back to your delegation the following year, for example.
Amazing.
So, but the other thing about that is, there's no good just getting a cup that's like a reusable cup when everyone has 1,000 of those already. You need to kind of make sure whatever we're doing is something that might actually be used many times and doesn't just get sat on the shelf of 25 other cups. So I think it takes a bit of clever thinking and a bit of innovation. But I think that's what we should be doing
as well.
As marketeers, I think that's what we're there for, to being the creative thinkers.
So, and again, you know, your energy is quite clear on all of this and your excitement about it. Do you find it a little bit frustrating, perhaps, that maybe other industries or organisations are maybe slower to adopt it or not as enthusiastic? Perhaps, do you find that?
Yeah.
Like sometimes wake up in the morning and go, do you know, I just don't know if I can be bothered with this anymore.
Yeah. I do find that.
Do
you
you?
Say that.
Oh no.
It's challenging, isn't it?
It is challenging.
And you can feel a bit sort of alone sometimes, even though the team here in our team are brilliant and everyone's on board with doing it. You're always going to come across those few people or the odd client who just doesn't get it. Yeah. And for me, if they'll give you the time and respect to at least listen to why and what we could do, even on a tiny scale, I'm really all in for like helping them and working with them. It's the sometimes when you come across people who are proper naysayers and like very negative, I find that really hard because as a person, I would never dismiss someone else's idea in another part of the industry. even if it's not my passion. I would be listening about the reasoning and why. And so I do think we need to all have a mutual respect. And I do find it sometimes pretty frustrating. But sometimes I'll just power on through and do the things anyway.
I'm going to say do what you want to do.
Because often we can do things anyway that don't impact the event. Doesn't matter to the client, honestly. So they don't care either way, if that's the case. But we do, so we'll do it anyway. So when we first started this work, a lot of our clients probably weren't aware of anything to do with event sustainability, so they weren't asking us for the carbon footprint, but we were doing it anyway because we wanted to know what the carbon footprint and then how we could make it better next year. And now it's definitely filtering through whether clients are interested in it, but it's taken 2 or 3 years of having the trace tool to be able to start seeing interest in it. But that's okay. Like I said earlier to someone, said it's just such a slow process. You've got to be patient.
I know, you do.
It's hard.
It is hard when you're enthusiastic. Like, you want everyone to kind of like get on board and understand, like you say, understand why and have the same level of passion. It can be frustrating, but that doesn't stop us, does it? So we're still here, we're still doing it. So tell me about Tech Next.
Yeah.
Is that because you guys...
Yeah, well, we founded the idea and we presented it to our partner organisations, which is Dynamo Northeast, which is a tech sector membership, and Sunderland Software City, who run tech projects in the Northeast. So yeah, we came up with that, ran it first in 2023, and as part of that...
Oh, I really am behind.
Yes, we've done 3 years.
I only heard about it this year.
Yeah, I know, but that's interesting, because it takes time to break through, doesn't it? New brands. So so this is the 3rd year we've just finished this year, and I'm really proud of what we're doing for the sector. I'm definitely not a tech person, really. I've been around the sector a long time, so the guys that we partner with are the ones that really understand that ecosystem, but we're really passionate about our responsible sustainable events piece, and we created as part of that the Good Festival ambition from the start. And people ask me why you did that, and I said because then you can frame everything around a reference point, because I think if you just talk about loads of different things, people don't really get it, or they don't understand how you can make the impact. Whereas if you actually just write it down, this is the statement, even if it's an environmental policy, whatever it might be, this is our values and this is what how we're operating. And it's great because it gets more buy-in that way. So I was asked about it at one of the dinner events that we ran at Tech Next, and my whole table was, we're really interested in it and asking about how it works, what kind of things are you doing. So that covers, because we are really passionate about it being inclusive as well, inclusive and diverse, accessible and sustainable environmentally. So it's not just an environmental thing. So we've created all sorts of things. So it was the first event we created a little familiarization video walk around for our venues, so that if you're neurodivergent, you might be able to feel more comfortable arriving at that space because you know where things are going to be. Things like a buddy system we introduced, funded ticket ballot for people to make it more accessible. So lots of things for the community and societal impacts. There's loads more of that we can do. I mean, there's always more ideas you can have. And then the environmental stuff. So for me, building on that year on year has been great, and a way to just really evolve the impact. So this year we introduced the food bank donations. I mean, it wasn't massively successful, I have to admit. We didn't get very many donations. But that comes down to communication. I think with an event, there's so much information that you share. It wasn't enough in the spotlight because there's so much other important stuff too. I don't want it to take over, but how do we kind of thread it through so people just get to know, I'll bring that because that's what they do.
And again, I get those who went this year and had that experience probably think, next year, I wonder if they're doing it again. Oh yeah, they are. Excellent.
And there's a conversation we've had with our partners at the partnering organisations about maybe we do something with our digital inclusion fund. So there's a digital inclusion fund at Dynamo Northeast, which is a new charity kind of fund. So maybe we get people somehow to donate into that in a way rather than the food bank. So there's things we need to just sort of tweak and get right. But it's always good to trial stuff, like I said before. And some things work, some things evolve, some things get dropped. But that's what you've got to do with all innovation, isn't it?
Well, it's business all over, isn't it? So it's no different. It's just a different conversation or a different topic.
Exactly.
So when I looked at your website, and I said to you this before we started filming, I'm so impressed with all the policies you've got on there and how you talk about sustainability and responsibility, and your roadmaps on there, what your goals are, all that kind of stuff. You're a team of 12, did you say 12?
Only 8.
8, sorry. I don't know where I've got 12 from. So a team of 8. So I suppose some business owners, so I'm only obviously just me in the business, some business owners listening and watching might think, 8 people, you've obviously got somebody to do that for you kind of thing. How do people start, and how do you make it more accessible to just even start that journey? How, in your opinion, what's the best way for people just to put a toe in the water and see where they go?
Yeah, so if it was about event sustainability, I think check out the Event Sustainable Toolkit thing, which is on Newcastle Gateshead Initiative website. And even if it's not in this region, you can learn loads from it.
Okay.
Reach out to me. I'm always more than happy to have chats with people, connect on LinkedIn. I love talking about event sustainability. Yeah. If it's a small business as a small business, which I've had other conversations with people who aren't in our industry, I think I would say if you've got some time to just read other people's things a little bit, at least dip your toe in. So like have a look at our impact report, which by the way was completely done by us and just a narrative. Yeah. It's not a big corporate shiny thing. We realise now, set probably enough objectives to be able to then measure against. So it's basically a narrative piece about our journey. Yeah. So it's still quite hopefully interesting for people to see how we did it.
It's a really interesting story.
But, it made me learn, okay, maybe actually in future we probably need to have a few more objectives that we can measure against, maybe. But then no one's telling us to do anything. We can do it how we want. But I learn from what I see that other people do, I suppose. And actually data is really obviously interesting and an easy comparable.
Yeah, much easier,
have a look at other impact reports. And then I would say just think about what is your one ambition in environment? So for me, we do ESG. So if you look at one thing you want to achieve in the environmental space, one thing in the societal space, maybe it's just go out and volunteer in the community more as a team. Yeah. And that's great, giving back the hours voluntarily. We do that as a team, and we clock that and choose charities to support each year. Environmentally, it might be just let's try and recycle everything as best we can because we don't do that now, or look at the food waste thing, whatever. And then governance, it could just be, should we look at sort of getting some help on maybe an accreditation for our scopes 1 and 2 carbon, or how can we bring some more policies in to make sure people are aware?
Policies is
even just an environmental policy, and there's loads of templates out there. I'm happy to share any templates if anyone wants any, because we've obviously got lots of these things, but we haven't got everything. So if anyone wants to share them with me, they'd be more than welcome.
Gosh, well, they'd find it hard to find something. I think, to be honest, it's quite comprehensive what you've got. But Sarah, it's been really, really interesting to talk to you. Thank you so much. I do quite like I've got a new question I should start throwing into people. So, have you got a book recommendation? It could be to do with your industry or responsibility, or it could be something completely fictional. It's entirely up to you.
Atomic Habits was one that but I'm actually only halfway through.
Okay.
But that isn't necessarily sustainability, but it's behaviour change really, which I'm quite interested in. So it's how we change gradually. It explains that you've got to embed habits to make that change. And I think you can do that on a personal sense, but also as a business with a big movement. So you can't expect change to be immediate, and you can't expect it to stick. It's got to be embedded slowly. And so I quite like that theory. As I say, I haven't finished the book yet. And then the other one, I can't remember the name of it, but one of our first clients is Charlie Holt, who owns Holt's Yacht.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And he was at one of our Business with Impact dinners we did recently. We should come to one of them.
Oh, yes. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah. And everyone who wanted could stand up and do a 5-minute lightning talk on anything. So I talked about regenerative events, someone else talks about. And Charlie stood up and talked about this cycling tour he did in 1991 around the country to try and meet everyone who worked in environmental projects and stuff. It was really fascinating, and he wrote a book which was published. So I learned all this, bought the book on that evening on Amazon, and I'm reading that. So
well, I will find it. I'll put it in the show notes if anyone wants to have a look at that as well.
Just interesting to learn from that actually people have been, obviously there's been people looking at things for a long time, but funnily enough, his statement near the beginning of the book was, people thought really that these people were aliens in 30, 40 years ago. They were eco-warrior people that not everyone aligned with, whereas now it should be ingrained in all of us now, hopefully, or it should be starting to be.
Hopefully.
So it's just becoming the norm. I find that fascinating, reading kind of back about what it used to be like and how things are changing.
It's crazy how in the 70s it was there were all these voices and everyone's a bit like okay.
I mean, look at the Green Party, not that I'm political or whatever, but interesting, they've been around so long, and only in the last recent years they've been getting traction.
A bit more traction.
So
it's interesting to hear people talking about them. So Sarah, like I say, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think I'm sure you've sold Beacon House events to everybody because, you know, it's an amazing organisation that you've got. I know your team's amazing. Like I said, if people want to know about policies and responsibility and things like that, have a look at the website for sure. Where can people find you, find out more about Beacon House events?
Just go to the website, which is just beaconhouse-events.co.uk. Contact me on LinkedIn, Sarah Thackray. You should be able to find me quite easily. And yeah, more than happy to have a 15-20 minute Teams or phone call and just give any advice, and hopefully I'll learn something as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And just say about your Business with Impact dinner.
Business with Impact dinner is in Newcastle at Magic Hat Cafe, which is a...
Oh, is that where the magician is?
Oh no, but interesting, because it is... I know Magic Hat is a magician thing, but no, it's a surplus food cafe in Newcastle, and it's run by Project Bind, who look at food sustainability. Anyway, it's in Newcastle. I think it's the 9th of October, the next one. So yeah, interesting, because it's quite a cool place to just meet different people in the region who are doing things in sustainability or just doing things for good.
Yeah, and tickets on your website for that? Or?
Yeah, go to probably our Beacon House LinkedIn page, but otherwise I can send the link out. It'll be shared on my channels as well.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm excited. I'm going to have a look at the dinner and see if I can make it for sure. Definitely. Thank you for listening and watching, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening and watching the Responsible Marketing Podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please hit the subscribe button wherever you get your podcast from. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe there too. I also love to get reviews, as they make a huge difference to others discovering the show. So please leave a review, any comments or questions on whichever platform you prefer. And of course, feel free to share out your socials with your friends and your colleagues. If you want to contact me direct, you can email joe@jolongconsulting.com or find me on LinkedIn under my own name, Joe Long. Until next time, thanks for listening and for watching.